The colony of Vera was quiet, too quiet for a world that had once been full of hope. Its skies were gray, its fields barren, and its people lived with fear in their hearts. Years ago, when the colony was first founded, the settlers believed they were part of something greater. They thought the galaxy was a place of unity, where the strong protected the weak, and where distress signals would never go unanswered. But that belief had died slowly, just like their harvests. When the raiders came the first time, the colony called for help. The message was broadcast across the stars, reaching the nearest empires. They begged for aid, for soldiers, for ships, anything that could stop the plunder. But the galaxy was silent. The great powers had heard their cries but chose to ignore them. To the empires, Vera was small and unimportant. Why waste ships and men to protect a weak world that offered nothing in return? To them it was a lost cause. The people of Vera remembered the silence more than the flames. They remembered the broken promise of protection. After that, they stopped believing in the so-called unity of the galaxy. They lived each day expecting the next attack, waiting for the next group of scavengers to come and strip away whatever little they had left. Yet even in despair, they continued sending signals. It was a habit, a final cry into the void, though no one truly expected an answer anymore. But one day the signal reached an ear it was never meant to reach: Earth. For centuries, humanity had grown in the shadows of greater powers. To most of the galaxy, humans were still considered young and reckless, their starships unrefined compared to the sleek crafts of older civilizations. Their colonies were distant and often ignored. And so, when Earth received the signal from Vera, no one thought they would act. After all, if the great empires had given up, why would humans risk their fleets for strangers? But Earth was different. Humanity remembered their own history, the times when they were abandoned, the times when they had to fight alone. The signal from Vera reminded them of their own past, and something inside humanity stirred. It was not greed, not strategy, but something else, a refusal to look away. A meeting was held in the chambers of Earth's United Command. Some leaders argued it was not worth the risk. Others whispered that defending Vera could draw the attention of enemies too powerful to fight. But the room was filled with silence when the High Commander stood and said, "If we turn away, we are no better than those who left them to die. If no one else will stand, humanity must." The decision was made. A fleet would be dispatched, not the largest but enough to make a stand. Warships painted black and steel rose from Earth's orbit, carrying soldiers, supplies, and a message to the stars. For the first time in history, Earth was not fighting for itself. It was fighting for someone else. Meanwhile, on Vera, life went on as usual. Farmers tended to withered crops, children played in the dust, and elders watched the horizon with tired eyes. When the people looked to the skies, they saw only emptiness. They had long given up hope that anyone would come. Then one night the stars shifted. Strange shapes appeared above the colony, moving in formation. Panic spread at first. The people believed the raiders had returned, ready to finish what they started. Sirens rang across the settlement as families ran to hide. But these were not the sleek ships of the raiders. These were different, larger, heavier, their hulls marked with strange symbols. The colony watched in silence as the warships descended. A message echoed through the air, translated into their tongue. "This is the United Earth Fleet. We heard your call. You are not alone." The words froze the people in disbelief. For a long time, no one moved. They had been abandoned so many times before that they could not believe rescue had come at last. Was this a trick, another lie, or could it truly be real? As the first human soldiers stepped onto the soil of Vera, the colony saw faces they had never seen before, strange, determined, and unyielding. The soldiers carried weapons and armor unlike anything the colony had ever known. They did not look like saviors from legends. They looked like ordinary men and women hardened by battle, yet in their eyes burned something fierce: resolve. The leader of the human detachment removed his helmet and spoke clearly. "We will stand with you. No matter who comes, we will not Leave. The people of Vera felt a spark inside them, something they thought was lost forever. Hope. Yet in the shadows of distant space, others were watching. The raiders had heard the same distress call, and they were coming again, hungrier than before. And this time they would not find a helpless colony. They would find Earth waiting. The galaxy did not understand it yet, but in that moment, everything began to change. Humanity had stepped into a role no one expected, and for the first time the helpless were no longer abandoned. The first days after the humans landed were filled with silence. The people of Vera watched them from a distance, afraid to trust yet unable to look away. These strange newcomers set up camps with perfect order, building defensive walls and energy barriers in places the colony had left unguarded for years. Their machines hummed through the night, repairing broken roads, fortifying structures, and scanning the skies. It was as if the humans had come not only to fight but to rebuild what others had left in ruins. Still, doubt lingered. Many of the Veran leaders gathered in their central hall to debate. Some argued that these humans were no different from the raiders, just another force pretending to be allies until they claimed everything for themselves. Others, however, saw something different in the way the humans moved, the way they spoke. They did not demand tribute. They did not ask for control. They simply worked side by side, as if the fate of Vera was already their own. One night, Elder Kalor, the oldest voice of the colony, walked out to meet the human commander. The man stood tall in armor that looked both primitive and powerful, a strange mix of steel plates and advanced shields. His eyes carried the weight of battles fought on worlds far away. Kalor asked the question everyone feared to voice. Why? Why would your people come here when the great empires turned away? Why risk your lives for us? The human commander's answer was simple, spoken with no hesitation. Because we remember what it feels like to be ignored, because no one else would. The words spread across the colony like fire. For the first time in generations, the people felt something stirring. Faith. Perhaps this time the promise was not a lie, but while hope grew on the surface of Vera, the galaxy whispered with suspicion. News of Earth's move spread quickly. From the merchant guilds to the Council of Empires, everyone asked the same question. What game are the humans playing? They had no great fleets, no ancient power, no vast empire to protect, and yet they had placed themselves between a weak colony and the predators of space. The scavenger clans were the first to react. Their warlords laughed when they heard of Earth's intervention. Fools, they spat. Do they think their small ships can stand against us? Do they not know why the galaxy left Vera to rot? We will burn them, and we will burn those weaklings with them. Their fleets began to move. Thousands of raider vessels, fast and cruel, gathered in the dark. To them, humanity was nothing more than prey pretending to be predators. On Vera, the humans prepared. Their fleets hovered in orbit, dark silhouettes against the stars. Their ships were not elegant like those of the empires. They were blunt, angular, built for war and nothing else. Cannons lined their sides, railguns stretched across their hulls, and strange energy fields pulsed like beating hearts. The colonists had never seen such vessels before. They looked less like ships and more like weapons forged into shape. Children pressed their faces against windows to watch the humans march. Farmers paused their work as tanks rolled across broken fields. The sound of engines became part of daily life. Some colonists whispered in fear, but others whispered in awe. These were not empty promises. These were preparations for war. 1. Evening, as the sun fell behind Vera's jagged mountains, the first true contact between human soldiers and Veran citizens took place. A small group of children, braver than their parents, approached the camp where the humans trained. They carried a small basket of dried fruit, the best offering they could gather. Nervously, they set it before a group of armored Marines. The humans paused, staring at the gift. Then one of them removed her helmet. She was young, her face marked with scars, but her smile was warm. She knelt down and spoke softly, using the translation device strapped to her wrist. For us? The children nodded quickly, their wide eyes filled with both fear and excitement. The soldier took the basket gently, thanked them, and handed each child a ration bar from her pack. The children's faces lit up with joy. For the first time in their lives, they tasted food not made from dust or scraps. They ran home shouting of the kindness of the strangers. The story spread faster than any message. Soon, more colonists came forward, not with fear, but with curiosity. They shared small things: water, tools, stories. In return, the humans shared medicine, food, and protection. A bond was forming, one that the galaxy had never expected, but peace was fragile. High above the world, long-range scanners picked up the first signs of incoming ships. The raiders were on their way. The human commander gathered his officers and gave the order: hold the line, no retreat. The people of Vera watched the skies grow darker as unknown signals filled the void. They gathered in the streets, trembling, waiting for the nightmare to return. But this time, something was different. They were not alone. Human soldiers stood. At every gate, human ships patrolled every orbit, and human eyes watched the stars without blinking. In that silence before the storm, Elder Kalor whispered to the people, "The galaxy may have given up on us, but these humans, they have not." And in the distance, the first lights of the scavenger fleet appeared, hungry, merciless, and ready to consume. Yet they did not know what awaited them. For the first time, Vera had defenders who would not walk away. Humanity was ready to make first contact, not with words, but with fire. The night sky above Vera burned with strange lights. At first it was just a glimmer, like distant stars shifting out of place. Then the signals grew stronger, hundreds of ships approaching fast. The scavenger fleet had arrived. They came like a storm, ships blackened by soot, patched with stolen parts from dozens of other worlds. Their hulls were scarred but cruel, each one marked with the bones of their victims. To the helpless colonies of the galaxy, these ships were nightmares given shape. To the scavengers, Vera was nothing more than a meal waiting to be devoured. From their flagship, the warlord laughed as he watched the little blue-green planet. "So this is what they send us? Humans, the weakest of the young races. They do not even have an empire. They think to stop us with those crude machines? Pathetic." The fleet commander spat on the floor. "We will crush them in one strike, and when we are finished, the humans will join Vera in the ashes." The raiders prepared for slaughter, but down on the planet the air was heavy with fear. The people of Vera stood in silence, listening to the alarms echo across their cities. This was the moment they had dreaded for years. The predators were here again. But something was different this time. Above the colony, human warships held their position in a tight formation. They did not scatter. They did not run. Their angular hulls reflected the starlight like blades drawn for battle. Each ship carried scars of its own, proof of battles fought across Earth's rise into the stars. These were not symbols of weakness. They were warnings. In the command center, the human fleet captain gave his orders in a calm, steady voice. "All ships hold line. Do not fire until ordered. Let them come." The scavenger fleet descended with arrogance. Waves of plasma fire cut through the void, screaming toward the human line. To the colonist watching from the ground, it looked like the sky itself was splitting apart. Mothers held their children close. Elders bowed their heads. Many believed it was over before it even began. But the humans did not break. Their shields flared bright blue as the first plasma barrage slammed into them. The ground shook, windows cracked, and fires sparked across the outskirts. But the shields held. When the light faded, the human formation was still there, unbroken. Gasps filled the colony. The raiders were known for overwhelming their enemies in minutes. No one had ever survived their opening strike. But the humans had not even flinched. On the scavenger flagship, anger replaced laughter. "Again!" the warlord roared. "Burn them!" A second barrage rained down. Plasma tore through the heavens, striking harder, faster in endless waves. Yet again, the human shields absorbed the storm, and this time, the humans answered. Railguns thundered from Earth's ships, launching slugs at near-light speed. The scavenger fleet had no time to react. The first shots tore holes straight through their lead cruisers. Explosions ripped across their lines. Whole ships shattered into burning debris that fell like meteors toward the atmosphere. The colonists, on the surface, cried out in awe. They had never seen such weapons. Each railgun strike was like a spear thrown by the gods themselves. The scavengers, so proud and cruel, were being torn apart by the very prey they had mocked. On the ground, human soldiers moved quickly. Dropships spread across the settlements, positioning tanks, artillery, and squads in defensive rings. Barren, civilians watched as armored marines dug trenches and set up turrets with mechanical precision. Some of the colonists offered to help, bringing tools, hauling supplies, or guiding soldiers through the terrain. For the first time in their lives, they were not running from the battle. They were standing beside someone who fought for them. In the skies, the scavenger fleet regrouped, furious. Their warlords snarled. They dare resist? Very well. We will show them our teeth. All ships, charge. The raiders surged forward, their smaller vessels darting like knives, firing everything they had. Human interceptors broke formation, meeting them head-on. Dogfights erupted above Vera, streaks of fire crossing the heavens. The colonists looked up in wonder and terror as the battle unfolded directly above their homes. One Veran child tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing at the sky. "They are not running," she whispered. "They are fighting for us." Her mother could not answer. Her eyes were wet with tears she did not understand. Back in orbit, the human fleet captain stood firm. His voice was cold, steady, and merciless. "Target their flagship, break the beast's head." A volley of railgun fire and missile salvos converged on the scavenger command ship. Its shields, strong against the weak colonies it had crushed for years, buckled and shattered under the human assault. Flames consumed the warlord's throne room as explosions ripped through the vessel. For the first time, the predators felt fear. Down on Vera, the people roared as the massive ship broke apart, its pieces scattering like burning meteors across the void. The galaxy had called the humans reckless, naive, even foolish. But now, in the fire of battle, the truth was clear. Humanity was something else entirely. And as the wreckage of the flagship burned in orbit, the surviving scavenger ships hesitated. They had come to feast on the helpless. Instead, they had awakened predators of their own. The battle was not over. The scavengers still outnumbered the humans. But for the first time, the galaxy saw it. The humans did not blink. The wreckage of the scavenger flagship burned in orbit like a dying star. For a moment, silence hung across the battlefield. The people of Vera stared at the skies, unable to believe what they had just seen. The predators that once ruled their nightmares had been struck down in front of their eyes. For the first time, the helpless dared to hope. But the battle was far from finished. The scavenger fleet was vast. Hundreds of warships still surrounded the planet. Without their flagship, they were angry, desperate, and even more dangerous. The War Council aboard the human command ship, officers read out reports in urgent voices. "Multiple wings breaking formation. They're targeting our ground defenses. Several heavy cruisers moving to flank." The captain of the fleet stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. "Good," he said. "Let them come. We hold this line for Vera." The scavenger ships plunged toward the atmosphere, their engines glowing red. Fire streaked across the skies as dropships full of raider soldiers descended like a rain of knives. On the ground, alarms screamed. Civilians rushed into shelters while human marines sprinted into position, locking weapons, sealing armor, and preparing for the fight of their lives. The first wave of raiders slammed into the outskirts of the colony. They were monstrous. Giant reptilian warriors with jagged blades and plasma rifles stolen from 100 worlds. They charged with bloodthirsty cries, believing they would crush the defenders in minutes, as they had always done before. But this time, the defenders did not scatter. Human tanks roared forward, their cannons unleashing thunder. Trenches lit up with heavy gunfire as Earth's soldiers held the line. The air shook with the sound of railguns, missiles, and the crack of plasma fire. The people of Vera huddled in bunkers listening to the chaos above. They expected to hear screams of defeat, but instead they heard something else. The steady rhythm of human guns firing without pause, a heartbeat of war that did not falter. On the battlefield, the ground itself seemed to turn against the raiders. Human artillery pounded their positions with precision strikes, cutting apart whole squads in seconds. Drones swarmed the skies, firing down on advancing troops. The scavengers, so used to preying on the weak, found themselves trapped in a storm of iron and fire. Yet the battle was brutal. The scavengers were not cowards. They fought with savage strength, tearing through human lines where they could. Explosions tore apart defensive walls, and human soldiers fell under the sheer weight of numbers. For every raider that died, 2 more seemed to emerge from the smoke. At one point, a massive scavenger war beast, a towering creature bred for slaughter, charged through the battlefield, scattering defenders with its claws. The people watching from hidden shelters screamed as the monster roared. But then, a human soldier stepped forward. His armor was scorched, his rifle nearly broken, but he carried a launcher on his shoulder. He stood his ground as the beast thundered toward him. At the last second, he fired. The rocket struck true, detonating in a blaze that shook the valley. The war beast collapsed, broken and burning. The soldier raised his fist to the sky before falling to his knees, wounded but alive. The colonists watching through screens gasped. They had never seen such courage. These humans fought like demons, not because they sought glory, but because they refused to abandon them. Meanwhile, in orbit, the human fleet was locked in a desperate struggle. Swarms of scavenger vessels attacked from all sides, their plasma, fire raining down in endless waves. Human ships took heavy damage, hulls cracked, shields flickered, and crew screamed as fire tore through corridors. But no ship retreated. One destroyer, burning from stern to bow, rammed straight into an enemy cruiser, taking both vessels into the void. The surviving ships closed ranks tighter than before. From his command chair, the fleet captain spoke through every channel, his voice steady even in the chaos. Stand fast. Every second we hold is another second the helpless live. Fight. His words carried across the battlefield, reaching every soldier and every colonist. And something changed. The Verans, once powerless, once broken, rose from their fear. Farmers picked up tools and joined human engineers in carrying ammunition. Healers rushed to battlefield tents, tending not just their own but human wounded as well. For the first time, the colony was not just surviving. It was fighting back. Hours dragged like centuries. The battle raged across sky and soil, leaving fire and ruin in its wake. But slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. The scavengers, broken by the loss of their flagship and bleeding from endless assaults, began to falter. Their attacks grew desperate, their formations sloppy. Then came the moment. The human captain raised his hand, his eyes cold as steel. All ships, converge fire. Break them now. The fleet unleashed everything at once. Railguns, missiles, and beams filled the void with light brighter than a sun. The scavenger fleet cracked under the storm. Ships exploded one after another until the survivors scattered, fleeing into the blackness of space. On the ground, the last of the raiders were cut down. Human soldiers stood bloodied but unbroken, their armor scorched, their weapons low on charge. The battlefield was quiet at last. When the people of Vera emerged from their shelters, they looked at their world with new eyes. Smoke rose from craters, but above it, human banners still stood. The scavengers were gone. They had been defeated, not by the great empires, not by ancient powers, but by humans who had chosen to fight for the helpless. For the first time, the people of Vera lifted their voices not in fear, but in triumph. They had survived, and it was because Earth had come when no one else would. The battlefield was silent at last. Smoke curled into the sky, drifting over broken walls and scorched fields. The once terrifying scavenger fleet had fled, leaving only wreckage burning in orbit. For the people of Vera, the silence was unreal. They had expected chains, fire, and death. But instead, they stood free. When the first rays of dawn lit the horizon, the colonists emerged from their shelters. They stepped cautiously into streets still littered with debris and the bodies of fallen raiders. Everywhere they looked, human soldiers were standing watch, battered but unbroken. Their armor was scorched, their weapons cracked, but their eyes were steady. These strangers had bled for them, and they had not turned away. Elder Kalor stood before the human commander, his voice trembling. We were forgotten. The galaxy gave us up for dead. Yet you came. Why? The commander's face was hard, yet his voice was calm. Because no one else would, because you should not have to face monsters alone. The words struck deep into every heart on Vera. They were simple, yet they carried more weight than all the promises the galaxy had ever broken. News of the battle spread quickly. Merchant ships passing through the system carried tales of what they had seen. Humans standing against overwhelming odds, refusing to abandon the helpless. Soon, across the stars, whispers began to rise. In trading halls, in taverns, in the courts of mighty empires, voices spoke the same question. Why did the humans fight? The empires had ignored Vera because it was weak, because it offered nothing in return. Yet Earth had sent fleets, soldiers, and lives to defend strangers who had nothing to give. To the powerful, this act made no sense. But to the common people of the galaxy, the farmers, the miners, the forgotten colonies, it was a spark of hope. For them, humanity became something new. Not just another young race clawing for power, not another empire in the making. Humanity became a shield, fierce, stubborn, unyielding, a race that remembered what it meant to suffer and swore never to let others suffer the same way. On Vera, the bond between humans and colonists grew quickly. Human engineers rebuilt homes destroyed in the fighting. Medics treated wounded Verans as carefully as their own. Children followed human soldiers through the streets, asking questions, laughing, sharing food. Where there had once been fear, there was now trust. But the victory did not pass unnoticed. In the high councils of the great empires, the battle was debated with unease. Some leaders scoffed, saying the humans had only been lucky. Others warned that this was dangerous, that a race willing to fight without reward could not be controlled. And deep in the shadows, old enemies of humanity took note, marking Earth as a threat to their dominance. Back on Vera, the colony gathered in the central square to honor their defenders. The people cheered as human soldiers marched through the streets, their banners waving proudly in the wind. Many wept openly, unable to hold back the emotions that had been buried for so long. Elder Kalor raised his hands, his voice carrying across the crowd. When the galaxy gave up on us, when all hope was gone, these humans came. They did not ask what we could offer. They did not ask if it was worth the risk. They came because it was right. Remember this day. Remember who stood when no one else would. The cheers shook the very air. For the first time in generations, the people of Vera felt safe. That night, a transmission was sent out from Earth's command ship. It was not directed at any single empire. It was sent to everyone, across every channel the humans could reach. The message was simple, spoken in a clear voice. We are humanity. We do not forget what it means to be helpless. We will not stand by while others suffer. If you prey on the weak, you will find us waiting. The message spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, billions heard it. To some, it was a warning. To others, it was a promise. And to the helpless who had long been abandoned, it was hope reborn. The scavengers would recover. Other predators would rise. The galaxy was vast and full of danger. But now there was a new truth written in the stars. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was choosing to fight not only for itself, but for those no one else would defend. On the surface of Vera, as the night sky shimmered with the glow of wreckage still burning in orbit, the people looked up and whispered with awe. The galaxy gave up on us, but Earth did not, and because of them, we live. And somewhere in the endless dark, other forgotten worlds heard those words and dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, humanity would come for them too.